Welcome to A Double
Double
and Dice
with your host Kim.
and Jocelyn.
Pour your favorite beverage
Pull up a comfy chair.
as we are ready to roll. Welcome to episode 10 of A Double and Dice. And on this week's episode, we have flipped roles, and this is Jocelyn opening the episode because Kim is actually going to be a guest today, along with a couple of our other DM North colleagues, fans, hopefully fans.
We're fans of it too.
So we've got Matt, and we've
Hi.
got Laurier,
Hello.
and of course Kim.
Hi.
And the three of them are my guests on A Double and Dice tonight because we're going to talk about the just past Earth X Origins tournament where Kim and Laurier were both participants, and Matt took the day to dedicate the entire day to streaming a number of matches on our DM North Twitch channel. And I was not there, so I know nothing about what happened, and they're going to fill me all in. So that's the plan for today's episode. So Earth X Origins, if you didn't know, was a event that was put on with prizing sponsored by WizKids, which included the very sweet and oft-mentioned Alt Art X-Men cards that were first revealed from last year's Worlds in 2019. They were prizing for the European Open, and this is the third time they've shown up as prizing for this event, which was put on by Rollin' Thunder.xyz, no apostrophe, no G, and the CR Game Room guys provided backup support, particularly Ryan on Discord as Gilmax. So they put this event on with the WizKids sponsored prizing, as well as other community prizing that was thrown in, and it was a pretty successful event. So it was it 45 participants, Matt?
Yeah, I believe it was 45 started, and I believe 43 finished.
Yeah, so that's really impressive. So 45 players from all over the world attended this and participated in this tournament online that was held through the CRGR Challenge account, and it's like that's more people than we had at Real Worlds last year, like in person, IRL. Right? We only had 38. I think.
Yep, that's correct.
Yeah, so it's really exciting that there was this much participation, and this was a current modern, no holds barred event. There were no bans, anything current modern with WizKids from May 2020 that was part of the new rotation was in, and I know one of the reasons that I chose not to play, and Matt, maybe you I think are in the same boat here, is because we felt it might be a Becky Palooza.
Yeah, that's what I was expecting, and I wanted nothing to do with that.
Because, yeah, Becky Lynch is kind of a crazy card.
Yeah, it's a crazy card, crazy abilities, crazy costs, and in all honesty, not fun to play with or against, in my opinion. Yeah. And then my secondary reason was I had other things going on in my real life that day. But, I'm glad that you guys were all able to participate. So, Kim, tell me about your team, sort of high level. What did you put together for this event?
A Becky team. Because Matt said not to, I did it anyways. No. Originally, though, I did not want to go meta. I had her on the team as a secondary win con, but mostly for her global because I like to prep stuff over if I can. So I was actually going with Mystique. This one, it gives +1/+1 with every die in the field zone, yours and your opponent's. And then that was my main build, and then you had all your control pieces and all that stuff. But after playtesting with you, Jocelyn, and Rob, she was winning but too slow. And it came down to the question was, do I want to win games, or am I there, I'm going to have fun, but am I there to just have fun and to play some games, or do I want to win some cool prizing? And I knew I was going to be up against Becky's and God Catchers and all that stuff. So I did change my mind. Ended up going with Becky. Didn't really want to, but I knew if I wanted to win games, obviously I needed that there. So yeah, she was my main star, I guess, for the team. Secondary win con was, which was an off card too, is Deadpool. It was Deadpool, the one that gives +3 and overcrushed when he's blocked.
Yeah. So when we were
just in case.
playtesting Kim's team, like Mystique is really cool, but I know, like I was playing what Kim liked to call my choose your own adventure team, where I had like an Iceman or a Godcatcher and a Jubilee and a Hope Rachel and a couple of other things, and just kind of did whatever. And a Becky. There was a Becky on there too. And an
Everything
Nylor,
on the team.
and a Static Field, and an Istrid Horn. So I had a bunch of cards to do things like, stop global abilities or to prevent attackers from going through, or KO things to KO the field. Like I had kind of a variety of things on there. It did a lot of things, but it didn't necessarily do everything really well. You kind of pick an avenue depending on what you were doing. So I played it a bunch of different ways against Kim, and the Mystique just wasn't getting there, especially because you need big fields.
Yeah.
Right, for Mystique to get really big, and then you also needed to add the Ray shield?
That's right. I needed to add that for the Overcrush on her to at least.
Which you have to roll on a burst phase.
Yeah. Yes.
Right. So
which is a good thing I didn't go with it, because during that day nobody left fields open, like people and characters in the field, which I found they kept it to 1 or even none, and I'm actually glad I didn't go with her. So she would have been useless, and I would have had to go with Becky at that point anyways.
Yeah. So the event was 6 rounds of Swiss, and how did you do on the day, Kim?
I was 2 for 4. I faced 2 Becky teams, 2 Godcatchers team, a Riddler Danny team, and a Psychic team with Lita.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, those were the 6 I faced. 2 strong games to start, and then I think Becky went to sleep because she couldn't roll to save my life. Missing 2 Beckys in 1 turn really puts you back.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a game about rolling your characters, she had to be on fire that whole day, and fortunately, that's what caused me to be a little bit 2 and 4. When it doesn't roll, it doesn't roll. What you gonna do, right? You gotta either pivot and move and do something else, but then it's too late. So.
Yeah. Now, Laurier, it was your birthday.
Yes, it was.
And you had a pretty good birthday present.
Yes, my wife and my parents teamed up to look after the kids so that I could play some Dice Masters. So, which is really sweet of them, and many thanks to them, because I really needed a bit of a break, honestly. So that was a good way to do it.
Nice.
So.
And how did you do on the day?
I went 5-1, also running a Becky team.
So what was different about your Becky team?
Okay, some people went Swiss Army knife. I did the opposite. I went for consistency and focus. I also added a bit of control as well, which some people just didn't see coming.
Mm-hmm.
Triple H was a bit of a hidden gem in this meta for sure.
So what does Triple H do, Laurier?
Essentially, he's like... When you field him, you name a non-psychic character die, and then that die cannot be purchased or fielded. Now, because of the gameplay ramifications of naming just a single die, he was ruled before the tournament to name a card. So he essentially works like Blob from X-Men First Class, except he's a 6 cost and he can't affect actions. So he is strictly worse than Blob, but there's no Blob in this meta. Mm-hmm. And he was literally the one best way to say, I name Becky, you don't get Becky.
So it prevents from purchasing and fielding?
Correct.
Okay. But you have to pay 6 for him?
Yeah, but the way I had built my team, it was not that hard to get to 6. And more importantly, to get to a 6 cost.
Mm-hmm. So... were you using that as like an early control piece, or were you often sort of doing the defense and then the offense, or?
It really depended on the matchup. If I had the right rolls, I could prep a Triple H on turn 2, going first.
Wow.
So that meant that if I knew I was up against a Becky team on the other side, a turn 2 Triple H was a legit strategy. And I mean, it's so oppressive when you tell them, okay, so I know, because let's say I buy Triple H on turn 2, then they on their turn 2 buy their Becky. I field Triple H, I name Becky, and all of a sudden they've got a dead die that they have to roll next turn, they can't field it. So the second that hits the field, it just completely forces them to play around it, and it disrupts their strategy long enough to give me time to maybe get my own win con going.
Yeah, I think if you can prep that turn too, I could see how that would be a really good control piece. Can you walk us through how you get to a 6-cost prepped on turn 2?
Okay. Yeah, actually. Okay, so I would, on turn 1, aim to purchase a Gazer and prep it. Now, keep in mind, I have Intellect Devourer on that team for consistency. Intellect Devourer, which has a global that allows you to take a sidekick and essentially spin it to any energy, a psychic character, and turn it to any energy side you want. So you need that shield to prep a Gazer? Go ahead. And so I would prep a Gazer on turn 1. Then on turn 2, I would need 2 shields, 2 fists, and 2 other energy.
Okay.
So I would aim for Gazer on double energy, and of the 4 other dice, I just needed 2 fists and 2 other energy.
Right.
Because then I could spend 1 energy for the Becky Lynch Global, 2 fists for Kree Captain, and that leaves 3 to pay for Triple H.
And then you prep him because of the Becky Lynch Global.
Exactly.
Right. Okay, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good strategy there. Did you do a lot of testing with your team, Laurier?
Yes, thanks, Matt.
You're welcome.
He was my training partner for this. He didn't really want to join in on this, and I was like, okay, prepare these teams. I want to test this against them. And I started playing with my Becky team, and it was so effective we didn't even move to me using the other teams. I just tested Becky against everything else.
So, Matt, you were in the streamer booth all day.
I was.
What sort of teams did you see?
Of course, she told me that I didn't have to do homework.
Just whatever you remember.
I'm trying to think what the first match was, and I'm blanking on it totally right now. There was Becky. The one that stands out is, of course, the one that eventually won was the Godcatcher team. Truby had a potentially interesting team that just didn't work. He couldn't roll, but it was an adventure-based team, which looked kind of cool. But the dice weren't liking him, so we never actually saw how that one worked. Yeah, like I said, the one that stands out to me is the Godcatcher team, just because it was a little unexpected for me. Lots of people had Becky, but not many people were using Becky to her fullest ability. Except for when we had Laurier and James on stream, they were just punching each other as fast as they could.
And when we're talking about Becky, we're talking about Made in Ireland, right? The 5-cost.
Yes.
I think there's lots of stats out there, and I think a couple of people have done some stats and some breakdowns of the teams, and we'll encourage you to go look at those things on CRGR's website, crgr.rocks, or I think Jackalope Spam Nick put something together. There's a link in the Discord. If you go to Dice Masters Online, there's a Google sheet that he shared with some stats on there. So there's a whole bunch of stats about this, but I believe all of the Beckys except one in this tournament were made in Ireland, and then there was one that was just the 4-cost Overcrusher.
Yes, there was only. I remember that kind of stood out to me when I looked at the breakdown. There was only one 4-cost,
and it was like half the teams, right?
Yes, I
had
think
a
it was
Becky.
22 teams, I believe, had the 5-cost Becky.
Yeah.
And by the way, one piece of stats that not as many people are realizing: there were 23 Becky teams. 23 teams with Becky in them. 7 of them made top 8, but there were 12 teams with Jerry Lawler on them. 6 of those made the top 8. So it wasn't just Becky that was making top 8. It was more often than not Becky and Jerry together.
The combo.
No, they're a tag team.
Yeah.
They go together.
And then the Booker T makes it even better, right? So the Fist Global on Jerry Lawler, which doubles the damage, and then the Booker T to force something to block your Becky. And I think, Kim, that's where you said things would have gone south with the Mystique had you gone the Mystique route, because people weren't keeping anything in their fields.
Yeah.
Right? There wasn't anything there. Like, people were just not even fielding sidekicks is what I've heard. right? Trying to prevent that, which is opposite. Normally you want to field sidekicks to try and keep them out of your bag so you churn faster, right?
Yeah, people were attacking with it if they rolled it. Just never had it out there.
Yeah.
And this led to some funny situations. Because I had brought the Kree Captain, the 3 cost. So people just thought, oh, he's there for the global. Oh, why does he have 2 dice on it? Oh, it doesn't matter. But a couple times, I ended up buying Kree Captain. Because, oh, hey, I've dealt you, say, 7 or 8 damage. Well, you're at, say, 12. I've got a Kree Captain that's going to give me 4 guaranteed damage. Plus, if I roll my Becky on level 2 and 1 sidekick, all of a sudden, that's 4 plus 7 plus 1 equals 12.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd use their lean field to my advantage.
Yeah, definitely. I could see that. Should we have a short conversation here about how broken this combo is?
Isn't that the whole conversation? It's broken. We're done.
Yeah, pretty much, right? The three of them combined in particular.
Well, I think the big problem is, well, okay, Becky Lynch herself is a problem. You shouldn't have a card with those stats and all of those abilities for that cost. That alone is crazy. But Jerry makes it as bad as it is, I think, because it's too easy. Just pay a fist and bam, you're dead.
Yeah, because the thing is, as much as I agree that Becky's a problem, if Jerry's not around, Becky is a slow win con. Because all of a sudden, okay, the threat is of what, 4 to 6 damage. With the Jerry Lawler Global, all of a sudden that 4 to 6 becomes 10 to 12.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, if you take Jerry out of the equation and you put Becky in there, Becky's still broken for the cost and would still see a lot of play. But there's a reason why, again, 50% of Jerry Lawler teams made top 8.
Yeah, for sure.
That the combo of them was too much.
Yeah, and when I was playtesting around with my team, so like when I was playing with Kim and testing with her, I had a Becky Lynch on my team. I just had the 4 cost because it wasn't the intent for me to actually run a Becky team. But I thought if I was playing against a Becky team, then it would probably have Booker T and it would probably have Jerry Lawler. So I didn't necessarily need to bring those myself. If someone else was coming at me with that, then I could just use their globals, right? So
Yeah,
I wonder if that's kind of where some of that.
That's what Laurier pointed out to me, I believe, I think it was you, Laurier, who said, like, have Becky on your team if you don't intend to use her, because odds are someone's bringing Jerry and Booker, and there you all of a sudden have a Becky team.
That's true. I did say that.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking when I was looking at it. I was like, well, but I don't want to spend 5. I'll just slap the 4 cost on here. It's hard. It's good enough.
But ideally, you also then want to have either a shield or a fist 2 cost.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to try to go for a Becky on turn 2, you want something that gives you 2 shields, one for Becky's global, one for Becky herself.
Mm-hmm.
Or you want 2 fists to use the Kree Captain global that most of these teams brought.
Yeah, and the team that I was playing had both the Intimidate Gazer as well as the Istrid Horn to shut off globals. So I had both of those available to me. So, I totally get where that's coming from. So, but it does sound like there's a lot of Beckys. There was more God Catchers, I think, than people were expecting. Is the consensus?
I think people almost forgot about Godcatcher because Becky took over the conversation, and I forgot about it, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
I looked at it, but it felt too glass cannon-like because I thought there'd be more Ivies. And if you have an Ivy on a Becky team, then you just force the Godcatcher token to block, and then it's gone. I thought that if I ran into too many Ivies, I would not have the time to set up the win con properly.
Which is funny because Ivy didn't even think about Poison Ivy. So that card actually surprised me during the tournament. I didn't see that coming.
So can someone remind us which Poison Ivy you're talking about and why it does that?
Poison Ivy red from the Harley Quinn team pack.
Okay.
While she's blocking or blocked by a non-villain, she gains deadly, and you prevent all damage dealt to her by non-villain characters.
Which, of course, the Godcatcher token has no affiliation, and Becky Lynch has no affiliation.
Correct.
Yeah.
And she has 3 costs, right?
Yes. And so the idea would be if you had a Becky team that used Poison Ivy as a kind of protection piece, use the Booker T Global, force Godcatcher to block, Godcatcher's dead. That is something I had done to me more than once during the 2-team takedown, so I knew it was a potential threat. In fact, I actually put a combo in my team, or one card in my team specifically to thumb my nose at Poison Ivy. And that's the Deadpool card, for which I put in for the global, which is pay fist, deal 2 to target blocking character die. So, of course, because the damage is dealt by the global, not by a character, it is not prevented by Ivy, so...
And that is the We're X-Force Deadpool?
Yes, there is another Deadpool that has the same ability, but We're X-Force is the one I used and the clearly superior one of the 2.
And that's the 4-cost one that when he's blocked, he gains +3A in Overcrush.
Correct.
Okay. Which I think is the same one you played, right, Kim?
Yeah, that's the one I had on my team as my backup win condition, yep.
So
I
Matt,
never thought about using that global on Poison Ivy.
So Matt, when you were thinking about playing and you were testing with Laurier, you said you were playing with the Becky team. You didn't like it.
Right.
How come?
It's not my... I don't know. It's... What's the right word? Like, it almost feels too easy. Like, there's not... I don't know. I like style points with a team. Like,
there aren't enough turtles on the team? Or?
It was lacking in turtles, definitely. Like, it needed a few more, like maybe 4.
Put a mask on Becky. A turtle mask on Becky.
He hates running anything that is the defining thing of the meta. If Turtles was the meta, he would hate it.
Oh, I'm not sure about that. I might actually play it. If Turtles was the meta, I'd probably be all over that. But yeah, I don't enjoy, like, the team. Like, I wasn't actually around during Bard days, so I was kind of happy about that. But Yonti, sorry, that's not my thing. Iceman, no, not interested in that. I don't know. I don't want to say like I like to play off meta, because I'll play meta when I need to, but that's not a meta that I found entertaining.
So let's take that as a good segue. Thank you, and talk a little bit about the meta. So is the meta Becky right now, even though Godcatcher won this tournament?
I still think overall probably.
Now, which Godcatcher won the tournament? The one with the action die, or the one with the 7+?
The Godcatcher.
Yeah,
the
one
cost.
with the 3 cost that is triggered when you yourself use an action die.
Yeah,
but
which
it's
I thought
not
was the most,
just...
right? On everybody's team, not the other one.
Yes,
Yeah.
but it's not just Godcatcher by himself.
No.
Let's not forget the reason why that Godcatcher team won against me, and it's the fact that it was using Under Surveillance,
Oh,
which
that
is
was
the
huge.
3-cost action
Huge.
that makes a level 1 character die unblockable.
Yeah.
Do not underestimate the impact that action made, because if you run Godcatcher without that action, or without some other form of blocker mitigation, you're going to have a much harder time getting that damage through.
Yeah, when I was playing with it, and I didn't consider Under Surveillance, it wasn't on my radar, but I also wasn't planning on actually playing. I was playing with Ray Shields, which again, same problem you have with the Mystique. You got to roll it on a burst face in order to get the Overcrush, right? So the +1/+1 is good, +1A, +1D, but you really want that Overcrush piece. And then the idea was I expect to be playing, if I was playing, Becky teams with Lawler and Booker T globals that I could take advantage of, right? So, but yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, and when I went up against that Godcatcher team, the thing is, I hadn't... Obviously, whenever you put tech into counter stuff, there's going to be gaps. And I've spent a fair amount of space on my team on consistency rather than on counters. So, of course, there were going to be some gaps, and unblockable characters were definitely a big gap in my strategy. If you are gearing up to go against that Godcatcher Under Surveillance combo, definitely Big E Powerlifter's Physique is a must.
Which I didn't even see much of either. It was on my team. I never faced any.
Why
I
is
don't
that
think
good
I saw
against? Oh, because he's active. So, okay, so let's just back up. So the Big E is the one that reduces combat damage to you to 2.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Right? So although you might have an unblockable character doing 10 or 12 or whatever the number might be, the damage would be reduced to 2.
Correct.
And then that die would go to the use pile.
Correct. Or even if it was overcrushing, you would only take 2 from an overcrush.
Right.
Yeah, I'm trying to think back, and I don't recall actually seeing a Big E at all.
No, because what happened is that people were not did not want to rely on a character that would be active.
Mm-hmm.
Except, or if they were going to rely on a character that was active, they wanted one of those kind of invincible blockers, like Ivy, like Joppa, like those kinds of characters.
Cheap ones.
Yes, cheaper.
Yeah,
3
you
costs
can't,
instead of 4, and 4 crossover on top of that, so you can't even discount it with Kree. So I can understand why people didn't go for Big E, because the fear was primarily Becky. But if people want to tech against Godcatcher as well, all of a sudden that Big E becomes more important. So even though the meta Becky is something you absolutely need to prepare for, Godcatcher is now sneaking up and saying, yeah, you were not prepared for me, so I snuck in a win. So next tournament, people are going to have to have an eye on Godcatcher. He just made a statement.
Now, go ahead, Kim.
Oh, I was going to say with Big E, and I think my regret, I guess, or I should have done, I had it on my team. I faced 2 Becky teams. I faced 2 Godcatcher team. I should have bought him first. And then started my win condition. I was buying Becky's first, and I think that hurt me.
So you went offensive when you should have gone defensive.
Right. I should have stuck defense first, not try to beat you to a Becky. You know what I mean? Maybe that's why she didn't want to roll for me. She was just, anyways. But that was my downfall, I think. I should have started defensive. Just as if, Laurier, you started with your Triple H first, right? Same thing. I should have started with Big E first. And I think that was my biggest regret, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's something that you learn as you play, right? Like, I think back to before Rob and I went to 2018 Canadian Nats for the first time to play in our first big event, and I had a super rare Wanty, which was not a fun team to play, but it was effective. And he didn't have one, and only one of us could play it, right? So we spent a lot of time building a team that he would be able to defend against a super rare Wanty, which ended up being a Hulk Power of Attorney team with what else did he have on there?
Infiltrate,
yeah.
That was his team.
That was Rob's team, yeah.
Which
so
he did really well with, too.
He made it to top 4, taking me out in the process.
Which I'm sure will be forever reminded of.
No, you know what? It was one of those. It was a very good matchup when we were playing each other in that top 8 breakdown there, and it really could have gone either way at that point. It went all the way to the end, and it just he had 2 bishops and all kinds of things going on, and it was just really, really slowing me down. But he had built that team specifically to combat that. Right? He had a way, he had a strategy. He was using the actual cake action, create food and water, to get all of his sidekicks so he could buy a Hulk turn 3, right? And get it in the field, or buy a bishop or whatever it was he needed to do so he could stall long enough until he could get his stuff going. And it was an excellent team. And he did really well with it. Right? And at that game that we played against each other, like I teased, but it could have gone either way, and both of us were both excited and heartbroken because we both wanted each other to go on, and it really could have gone either way. So it was a great game, and but yeah, so you had to kind of build that defensive strategy. How do you keep yourself alive in that meta long enough? Right? That's sort of what this Godcatcher Becky thing is. How do you keep yourself alive long enough? And I don't know if either of you played Chris, True Mr. 6, because his team looked interesting.
He was playing, was it a Lantern Ring team?
It was a Green Lantern human team, but he had an adventurer, and is it is it shield that you can? It's a gear you can attach.
Actually, that's right. We did have him on stream, and I didn't really know about that card.
I saw it because I was checking the teams once the team links got posted, and I was like, "That's smart." I did not consider that. So he had I think it was Istrid, and then he would. I guess the idea was he would attach shield to it, so then all of a sudden it can't be targeted by Becky.
It's chainmail armor, actually.
Chainmail armor. Okay.
Oh, so it can't be like re-rolled?
Can't be targeted by character abilities and has +4 defense.
Huh.
So you can't re-roll it out. And then it's got the additional defense. So chainmail armor. Great. Thank you, Laurier.
Yeah. Shield was another basic action that surprised me. Because that's a different one where where when you use it, your stuff can't be targeted essentially by global abilities and stuff. Which comes in so handy if ever you want to stop static field, wallop, whatever else. That was one that actually James Lore used.
Mm-hmm.
That surprised me.
So I
hadn't thought of that one.
I think there's some stuff in that Adventures in Waterdeep, Trouble in Waterdeep, etc. The Zentarum set that I think we're going to have to revisit and come back around. I think there's more stuff in there that maybe we haven't fully explored.
I think so. Like I said, I was the chainmail armor caught me off guard because I've never looked twice at that.
Yeah.
I looked at it.
I was very impressed with that team build. So Chris, if you're listening, great work. It was good to see. So overall, I think the event was really successful. Did you guys enjoy it?
Mm-hmm.
I quite enjoyed it. Like from a watching perspective, it was great. I hope the people who did watch it enjoyed it as well. And it sounds like the people who participated had a fun time too.
Long day, but it was fun.
Yeah.
How long was it?
12 to like 8:30 Eastern, pretty much when we finished.
Our stream was 8.5 hours.
Yeah, that's a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was fun. But my brain was fried at the end. And
Yeah.
I might as well address it now, but yeah, I did a big brain fart in the grand finals, which kudos to the folks at CR Game Room for help, for being understanding, and for the judges of the tournament. But technically both Alan, Tuba, who eventually won, and I did the brain fart, but I'm the one who did the biggest oopsie. Essentially, at one point in the grand final, tied 1-1, game 3, he was whooping my butt. I did not get any momentum going. I was buying a lot of defensive pieces because I just never got that roll I needed to buy a Becky. And at one point he calls out, "Okay, yeah, I've got game." My brain was fried. I did a brain fart, started putting my dice away. Then we realized, no, it's not game. You've got Godcatcher on the field and you've got Under Surveillance, but you don't have your Godcatcher token on the field when you use Under Surveillance. So that was a big oopsie moment, and we ended up having to stop the stream and restart it so that I could check the footage and see what the game state was and restore it on my end.
Right.
So again, and it was actually the CR Game Room guys that pointed it out, Rob specifically. Thank you, Rob, because honestly, had I noticed it later, I would have felt so bad about it. I'm glad that we got to catch it and play it properly. Alan still won.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I could tell that was going to happen, but still, I'm glad that we got to play it properly and that we got to resolve it.
Or else it haunted you for the rest of your life.
Well, you don't want to see a big game end
No,
on a
like
mistake.
that, yeah.
That would be terrible.
Yeah, I mean, we've all had mistakes when we've played before, right? We've all made mistakes on stream, on recorded videos, and, you know, it's accidents, right? And after that long, I mean, you know, Matt, Laurier, we all were at Worlds. We played Dice Masters for that long, right? Kim Nats wasn't quite as long when you were there, but it was still a long day, right? You're fried by the end of it.
And
100%.
you know what's one thing that didn't help? I had a crazy gauntlet of opponents from rounds 3 to for the whole day. I start off against Elliot and his Deadpool team. Already, that's a crazy start because he's really good. Like, he's a great pilot. That team, he deserved a better record than what he ended up with. Then I go up against Spug, who, again, really solid player. Then I follow that up with James. You know, James Lohr, fantastic player. I believe he was a runner-up for the European Open. Then Peter van de Velde, the winner of the European Open. Then I follow that up with Petrus, whom, if you've ever played in a major Canadian competition and you've played against him, you know he means business. He's a really good player. And then I finished that off against Alan. By that point, I mean, the level of competition in that tournament was extremely high. World's caliber.
I do have a complaint about yours and James's game, though.
Oh?
Uh-oh.
You guys were so friggin' fast when you were playing. I'm trying to set up the stream, and I couldn't keep up with you guys.
Oh, come on.
It was bad. It was a rough time. By the time I was done, I go, okay, Reg, is it over yet? Like, have I missed the whole game?
Hey, come on. We once played 5 games in, what, less than 40 minutes?
Oh, no,
And
I
that's
know you guys are
recorded
good
on
and
video?
quick and efficient. I'm just like, as a person trying to set up the pictures and stuff, I'm just lodging that complaint formally.
Okay, fair enough.
So no to you. No, play slower.
Yeah, give me like a minute, because I got to set up the graphics.
So
We
I'm
had to do 2
rolling
out of
my
3s
dice.
Like, we had to do 2 out of 3s in 50 minutes, guys.
Yeah, that was. I found that was actually tight. I think people, I guess, did they expect the games to only take 15, 20 minutes? Like, one of
No,
my
I don't
games
really know. I
was
don't
No,
like
really know
30
on that one.
minutes. I don't
They
know.
did that because they took the approach that European players typically take when they go in a big tournament. They don't like best of 1 as much in Swiss, so they prefer 2 of 3 and have a tournament stretch out over a couple days.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you guys how you felt about that, because here in North America, we typically play best of 1 in Swiss and then best of 3 in the top cut, right? Of course, there was no top cut in this tournament. How did you like the best of 3 in Swiss?
You want the players to comment first, or the...
Matt, as the streamer, what did you think?
I didn't like it.
Okay. Why?
I don't like. I don't think 50 minutes is enough time to play three matches, and I think most of the games that we saw, first game took up most of the time, and then they'd have like maybe under 10 minutes to get the rest of the games in, and then you're just rushing to get through. So I didn't think the results were, well, no, that's the wrong word. I don't mean the results weren't fair, but it just, I don't think you got what they were kind of hoping to accomplish with it. And this is I'm not like crapping on the organizers or anything here. They tried something, and I just don't think, from my opinion, it wasn't how it probably could have been. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So Kim, what did you think?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Matt. I thought it was a little short. Like, 50 minutes, 3 games. One of my games took a half an hour, and then the other one, you're kind of feeling, oh my gosh, you have 20 minutes left, and if you win, now we got to go like another 5 minutes to try to get a third game in. I don't know. It felt a little short for me. I mean, I guess I'm used to 2-team takedown, best of 3 in an hour and a half. I don't know. So that's like what? Almost 40 minutes, 30 minutes cut off of that. So it was a bit of an adjustment, but I guess as you go, you're supposed to get quicker. I don't know. You're supposed to know what you're to do and all that stuff, and just go a little quicker. But I think most of my games went almost to time, but not to time, except for one that we actually had to go. It went to time, game 3, 5 turns. So, but yeah, I thought it could be a little longer.
What did you think, Laurier?
I also think it was a bit short, but honestly, had I been running a control team, I would not have enjoyed myself as much with this tight of a time limit, because let's say it takes me half an hour to get the first win because that's how my team is built, then I'm kind of penalized for it, and I have to aim to win 1-0 or to win on time. So it's, I don't know, I did not it's not my thing as much. I understand why they enjoy that better because it allows for the more consistent team to win more often. But at the same time, I don't know, it was sometimes rather tight. Even with a Becky team that hit hard and fast, I found myself going to time a couple times.
It's a tough balance. Like, I mean, you're playing online, so that's obviously going to slow the game down because there's connection issues and maybe you can't see things as clearly. So you don't want the rounds to be super long. So I think the 50-minute time is fine. But just to get 3 games in that amount of time, that's in an online event, I don't think it's realistic.
So I guess my question would be, like, we've all played in, large events, all of us here, national or world level events where we've done, best of 3 in Top Cut and Swiss rounds in the first one. Do you think that doing it online gave you as good of an experience, the tournament, as it did in person?
It'll never be the same.
Yeah.
It's fun, but it's not this. It'll never be the same.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think in person's I won't say intimate, but you know what I mean, right? But the person's right next to you. There's no issues, no technical issues that you have to go through. You're not crapping out on you or anything like that, right? They're right there. You can shake their hand. Well, not this days, but you know what I mean, right? There's more interaction.
That's why Rob and I fist bump.
Yeah. So same thing. You're still touching hands. But
yeah, but how often do
elbow
you put your
bumps,
knuckles on your face?
It's just, air handshaking. But I think I still would prefer in person. But I always thought that online would give out more of a turnout too.
Yeah, and then in these times of the pandemic, of course, this is a good option.
Right.
It's a facsimile. It is not. That doesn't mean that it's not a good thing, but it's.
I think it's a fantastic
if you give me
thing. Like, I still think online play is fantastic, and it's a great way to play the game. And right now, it's pretty much the only way to play the game. Unless you're playing like on your kitchen table, then you got your family to do it. But if you want to play other players, there's no other choice right now.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. And thank goodness it's a game that we can play online, right? So.
Oh yeah, it's even for its faults, it still works quite well in the online scene.
Oh yeah. All I'm saying is, given the choice, I would choose, obviously, to play in person. Mm-hmm. Obviously, that's not a choice open to us right now. Just saying. But I do like playing online a fair bit.
So if we could turn back the clocks and we could sit down with Arj and Lucan and the CRGR folks and say, okay, this tournament, here, or if we look at this and say, okay, what did we learn from this EarthX Origins Roll Some Thunder online event? We learned that Matt is really good at designing logos, and we learned that Laurier...
it's his jam.
Right.
And overlays. Don't forget that.
We learned that Laurier is, likes to build very consistent teams, which is not really news. We learned that Kim decided she wanted to win the cards, so she went meta, which is not her usual strategy. But what did we learn from the event? What could we take from this one to the next one? Would it be best of 1 rounds? Would it be the rounds are maybe longer than 50 minutes?
Well,
do you extend them?
I like the best of 3 because you can have a bad game and it can just wreck you, and then you're out, one and done. So I do like the best of 3 because it gives you a chance to kind of come back from a bad roll. I think you got to extend the rounds. Like maybe you could just go to the hour. I don't think you go any longer than that. Otherwise, like, the long day is extra long. And I don't know if that 10 minutes makes that much of a difference or not.
And I guess that can depend too on the meta, right? So, like, to Laurier, to your point, if you're playing a very control-heavy team where it takes a long time to set up, right, and you're controlling the other player before you can get to your win con, then you could end up taking all that time still in the first game, right?
Correct. So, one thing I think we could learn from it, if you're going to do best of 3, maybe do best of 3 with a longer timer. Not just 50 minutes, because online, as it was pointed out, say you have to ask, okay, what are the stats? Okay, what's that card again? Okay, that takes a bit of extra time, and those 30 seconds here, 30 seconds there would add to the time that it took for a game. I would actually suggest a timer of 60 minutes for best of 3. I know that they went, I believe, with WizKids official rules, which do say 50 minutes for best of 3s. Maybe this is something they would need to negotiate with WizKids for a future event. So, but that's
online too. Yeah, I agree with you both. 60 minutes, I think best of 3 is good, because if you whiff one game, you kind of have another chance. And 60 minutes, I think, would be good.
Yeah, and
that's what I would try personally if I was going to do it if I was going to do it again, if we roll back the clock, I would try 60 minutes, see if that works. I still think some of those games are still you're only going to get the one game in.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That happens.
What, but
yeah, but I think that's a good thing to learn from it, and I think that we also learned that when you put good pricing on the line, people will pony up $6 American or $1 zillion Canadian to participate. And then also the fact that just building that in the time zone and being able to get the people from all over the world to join in was pretty impressive. So
I thought that was really cool, because that's a true Worlds event, what we just had, because it was everyone in the world was participating.
Yeah.
I just want to point one thing out about that. To accommodate them better so that it doesn't end at like 2 a.m. over there, maybe start earlier.
Yeah, I think that they could probably start a little earlier. Like, it started noon Eastern, which means that on the East Coast that was 9 a.m. Or the West Coast, like California. They probably could have started at 8, right?
I think they could have started at 7. It would have been a little early.
You know, if I was there, we could have started at 5:30 in the morning.
No, but 7 a.m. I think is a time where it's early, but you can manage it.
Are you talking 7 a.m. Pacific?
Pacific.
Okay. 7 a.m. your time? Forget that.
It would have been 8 a.m. your time. It would have been 10 a.m. my time. So what would happen then if you're in the UK?
And then add 5 hours to the UK.
Yeah, that's 3 p.m. their time. That means that if it takes 8 hours for the tournament, it's 11 p.m. their time. Yeah. That's still late, but it's not a case where you end up having a situation where some players have to drop.
Yeah, it's manageable, right?
Yeah.
Even for me.
Yeah, like, because by the end, some of the UK players, or at least one of the UK players, had to drop before he dropped.
Yeah.
Quite literally.
Yeah, absolutely.
There you go, folks. If you want Jocelyn to play in a tournament, start at 7 a.m.
5:30.
5:30, sorry.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, 7 a.m. would be good. Yeah, I would be on board with that.
But 7 a.m. Pacific, to be clear, so that 10 a.m. Eastern, if ever they want to get the UK
Arjun
folks on
Lucan
board.
can get up at 4.
I would not wish that upon my worst enemy.
No, I'm just
not even on Ben.
I'm just teasing. No, but I think that's a good learning. I think it's a good call out, especially if we're going to run that many rounds, right? 6. But I think the 45 participants was above anyone's expectations.
I don't think anyone expected that number, to be honest with you. So that
which was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, any final thoughts on EXO?
I think as a first run for something of that magnitude, I think they did a fantastic job. I think it ran very smoothly overall. And yeah, I don't really have too many complaints, even though we just kind of picked them apart in that last little bit. But I think overall it was well done, well run, and good on you guys.
Kim?
No, I agree with Matt.
Laurier, would you also like to agree with Matt?
Absolutely.
He pays us at the end of the day, so,
You got a paycheck?
Yeah.
What about you, Jocelyn? Do you want to agree with me?
I do agree with you, Matt, but not just for the sake of agreeing with you, because you're our illustrious leader. No, as someone who did not participate in the event just because it just did not work out for me, I think that everything I saw was very well run, very well put together. I liked how there was a lot of preparation in advance. So, you know, the Roll and Thunder did their podcast with Ryan to talk about the setup and all of the technical side of things. The posts were updated regularly on the website. The CRGR guys were putting lots of stuff in the channel to make sure that everyone knew what was going on. You know, the rulings were published in advance. Any questions were answered. They really sort of upped their game on the Discord. Like now they have that @judge rule. So if you have a rules question, you can tag the judges and all the judges will get notified so they can come and get you an answer. So for an online tournament, I think that they did a fantastic job, and I think that, you know, we always want to learn from it. And I think that the big learning is maybe the 50-minute round wasn't quite long enough. But my personal opinion, and I didn't play, but I like best of 3 because sometimes I don't know what your team does. Once I see it go off, I'm in a better position. Right? Now I might have a better idea of how I can handle that, or to Laurier's point, or it might have been yours, Matt. I'm confused at this point. But the consistent team will have a more likely chance of winning as opposed to the one-off. And I know we've all played games where our dice just will not roll, right? And there's nothing worse than losing a game just because you can't roll your dice, right? So if you have a best of 2 out of 3 match, you get another opportunity, right?
Yep.
Indeed.
So big thanks go out to all of the folks that were involved in this, and I will probably forget some, but we'll just say Roll and Thunder, CRGR, DM North,
Friday Night Clicks,
Yep.
who also did some streaming.
Yeah, all the people that recorded, all the people that commentated, all the people that participated, Lonnie for watching. I'm pretty sure he was the biggest spectator.
He was the man in chat. He was keeping us up to date on all the other matches.
Yeah, so kudos to him, and also
Another
for
kudos for Lonnie. Yeah, which is one thing I chose as a prize. Is that custom playmat?
Yep, it's very nice.
Which is unique to this event, actually.
Yeah. So a lot of people put a lot of effort in, and we really thank you for that, for doing that for the community. And big thanks go out to Jimmy at WizKids for providing the sweet X-Men cards. And I'm just going to put it out there, Jimmy, if you're listening, if you just wanted to send me a set, I would be totally okay with that. There's
4 of us here. 4 sets?
No, Matt and Laurier already have a set.
Oh, me?
In all seriousness, I'd like to hear what WizKids thought of the event, because I didn't hear anything.
That would be interesting. I would love to hear WizKids' opinion of what happened and what they thought of it, because this was really their first experience supporting an online event.
All right, so on that note, Jimmy, scratch the request for free cards.
Well, no, you can still send them, Jimmy. We won't say no.
But what we'd really like is to have you on the podcast to talk about what you thought about this. So maybe we can set that up. So, Matt, you've got an in there sometimes, right?
Some days.
So Matt's going to get in touch with your people. And
our leader.
Finagle. So I think that was great. So please let us know what you thought of this episode, what you thought of the tournament. We'd love to hear your feedback. All of our fantastic listeners out there, thank you for listening and continuing to listen to the podcast. We're 10 episodes in now, and we're just going to keep going strong. So
how do they get a hold of you if they wanted to comment?
Oh, we'll get there. Are you ready for it? But before we end, we do have a couple other announcements. Some other tournaments are coming up. Chris and Rob Game Room have their 2-team takedown. Sign up. You can sign up on their Challenge website. Deadline for that is July 3rd. Team submission deadline is the 10th of July, and game starts on the 13th of July. I believe they set up it's a legacy tournament, right? So they set up the ban list in the coalition site, so you can select it in the drop down and you know what's banned and stuff when making your teams. And then another one coming up is the mod, PDM?
The MOD PDM, the Ministry of Dice presents Dice Masters.
online. Their tournament is Saturday, August 22nd. I don't know details if it's modern, whatnot,
It's
bands.
the battle for the wooden spoon is all I know.
Oh, all right. So I want a wooden spoon, so I guess I'm going meta again. So
No, you want to go off meta for the meta spoon.
The wooden spoon is what you get when you get the lowest score.
Yes,
Yeah, that's
okay.
that's turtles. That's the day to bring out turtles.
Easy. All right. So
Pretty
sign
sure
up for
turtles
that.
are banned.
You can sign up for that on their challenge. I believe the Ministry of Dice has a challenge website, so I think you can search for that and sign up there.
And that is the online for the UK Games Expo. So UK Games Expo has gone online, and the Ministry of Dice is going to present their Dice Masters there. And they set the time up for that one as well to be accommodating of all of us folks in North America that might want to participate. And that one is free to join. So
I believe it's 2 p.m. Eastern it starts, I think. So
it sounds close.
Yep. All right,
so, yeah.
well...
And then, hang on.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a Team of the
There's
Month
more.
coming up, don't we, Matt?
Oh, yeah.
We do. It's I'm just actually working on the stuff right now. We're shooting for I think July 11th because there's a few other things happening in July. So that should be up shortly. If you watched the CR Game Room, not Chris and Rob Game Room anymore. The CR Game Room stream last night, we kind of let a little bit more than a teaser fly as to what we're doing. So if you like bashing people over the head, this one might be for you.
So keep an eye on dm-north.com website for announcements on the next Team of the Month, and pencil into your calendar July 11th for more details.
All right. Anything else?
I think that's all we got for today, Kim.
All right. Well, everybody,
I'd
thanks.
like to thank my guests, Kim, Matt, and Laurier, for joining me on this adventure of EarthX Origins. Thanks for being here.
Us.
No problem. Always here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, guys, thanks for being on and chatting with us. Really appreciate it. And with that note, you can reach us at triple-D-podcast@dmnorth.com. Also, we're on...
North.
Sorry?
Don't forget the punctuation.
Oh, yeah, dm-north.com. Facebook and Twitter at Dice Masters North. We are still working on Instagram. Yes, we will get that working at one point. And...
It's kind of when I remember the password. Sorry.
Just reset it.
Yeah, just hit reset. And, of course, our website at dm-north.com. So until next time, on a double and dice.